Fertility awareness methods, also known as natural family planning or periodic abstinence, are forms of contraception that require a woman to keep track of her menstrual cycle to determine the days that she could get pregnant. They are based on the fact that the lifespan of an egg after ovulation is usually 12 to 24 hours, while sperm is viable for up to 3 to 5 days. Typically, you are most likely to conceive if you have unprotected sex during the 5 days before ovulation and up to 24 hours after ovulation, making a total of 6 days in your cycle that you could conceive. These methods help to predict when you are likely to get pregnant and then require you to avoid unprotected vaginal sex on those days. If you choose a fertility awareness method for contraception, you must be prepared to abstain or use a backup method, like a condom, during your fertile days to prevent pregnancy. There are 2 main categories of fertility awareness methods: the calendar-based methods and the symptom-based methods. Calendar-based methods require you to keep track of your menstrual cycle to identify the beginning and end of your fertile days and abstain from sex or have protected sex on those days. One of these methods is the rhythm method, which requires you to track and record the patterns of your menstrual cycle for at least 6 to 12 cycles to determine the days when you are likely to be fertile. A menstrual cycle begins on the first day of your period, and this is when the count begins. To determine the first day of your fertile days, you will subtract 20 days from the length of your shortest cycle. To determine the end of your fertile days, you will subtract 10 days from the length of your longest cycle. Unprotected sex should be avoided during this fertile window. Another calendar-based method is the standard day method, which requires you to avoid having sex from the 8th to the 19th day of your menstrual cycle or use a backup method during those days. It is generally recommended for females whose menstrual cycles are regular and between 26 and 32 days. You can use cycle beads, a calendar, or a digital app to track your cycle and determine the days when you are likely to be most fertile. On the other hand, symptom-based methods require you to check for signs of fertility, like cervical secretions and changes in your basal body temperature, and then avoid having sexual intercourse on the days you notice these symptoms. They include the following methods. 1. The 2-day method, which requires you to check your vaginal discharge every day to determine the presence of cervical secretions. Unprotected sex is to be avoided on the day you notice cervical secretions as well as the next day. 2. The basal body temperature method uses your body temperature to determine when you are most fertile. You will need a thermometer to measure your temperature every morning before you stand up and record it on a chart. After ovulation, your basal body temperature will rise slightly. You are unlikely to get pregnant in the period between 3 days after a rise in body temperature and the start of the next period. This method is most effective when used together with the standard day method. 3. The ovulation method requires observing your cervical mucus to determine the start and end of your fertile window. When ovulating, you will notice that the mucus becomes watery and slippery as opposed to the thick mucus discharge on normal days. You are likely to get pregnant from the day you begin to notice the watery secretions until 3 days after it stops. This method should be combined with the basal body temperature and standard day methods to increase effectiveness. 4. The symptom thermal method combines multiple fertility awareness methods to predict the days you can get pregnant. As your body has several signs that let you know when you are likely to get pregnant, this method tracks several of them at once. These signs include how open your cervix feels, your basal body temperature, and the changes in cervical secretions. Using 2 or more fertility awareness methods increases the effectiveness of pregnancy prevention. Fertility awareness methods are good options if you want to get to know your body better, have total self-discipline, and want a method with no side effects. These methods are free, non-hormonal, and do not require a medical consultation. Fertility awareness methods are generally not as effective as modern contraceptives. With typical use, they are 76 to 88% effective. With perfect use, you can increase their effectiveness to 95 to 99%. The disadvantage of these methods is that they require consistency, self-control, and absolute cooperation from your partner. The calendar methods are not likely to work for you if you have irregular periods. In addition, some medications may cause changes in vaginal secretions, making some methods less predictable. Fertility methods do not protect you from STIs, so it is advisable to use a condom to stay safe. Learn more about fertility awareness methods and other contraceptive methods by visiting findmymethod.org.